Good day, everyone. Let me introduce first myself. I'm John Bitagyam, your teacher for today. I hope you will participate and listen to our discussion for today. Good morning, class. Before we start our lesson, who wants to volunteer to lead us a prayer? Yes, please. Amen. Good morning once again, class. Who's absent for today? Miss Secretary, please monitor the class attendance, okay? Thank you. So, class, how are you today? Okay, that's good. Before I start the discussion, I have here pictures and you may give some ideas and thoughts about it. Also, what era or period the picture depicts. If your answer is medieval period, then you are correct. I have a question here, class. What did you notice about the picture? Anyone? Yes, very good. The picture depicts about the religion and biblical scenes during the medieval period. This time, before you get fully excited to participate in the discussion, we have an activity first. You may put your answers on the clean sheet of paper. The activity name, 4 picks, 2 words. I will pause a picture, then guess what it is. Are you ready, class? Okay, let's begin. In every picture, you have 2 minutes to answer. First picture is this one. Who can guess what is the first picture all about? Yes, Miss Magulud. Okay, very good. It's medieval paintings. Next picture. Who can guess it? Anyone? Yes, Miss Bueno. What do you think? Yes, very good. It's medieval sculptures. Third picture. Mr. Suyu, what is your idea? Correct. It's illuminated manuscript. And for the last picture, who can guess? What do you think it is? Okay, Mr. Borja. Yes, it's stained glasses. Okay, class, this ends our pre-activity. Thank you so much for those who participate. So now you have an idea on what was the topic we're going to tackle for today. Fasten your seatbelt because we're going to travel on the medieval period. Let's go! Before anything else, I will give some brief history of a medieval period of art. What is the medieval period of art? The medieval period of art history began at the time of the fall of the Roman Empire in 300 CE and continued until the beginning of the Renaissance in 1400 CE. Medieval arts was made of various artistic mediums such as sculptures, paintings, illuminated manuscripts, stained glasses, tapestries, mosaics, and metalworks. Numerous artworks were made using these different styles, which went on to have a higher survival rate than other mediums like fresco paintings. I have a question, class. What do you think medieval art focused on? Any other volunteer to answer my questions? Okay, none. So medieval art focused on religion and Christianity. As I said a while ago, most art forms in the medieval ages were considered to be medieval religious art. Also common themes for art pieces were about God and the saints. We'll move on to the different art forms of the medieval arts and their characteristics. First is the medieval paintings. During the Middle Ages, religion went on to become a prevalent theme in the majority of the artworks that were produced. Vibrant paintings that featured famous icons such as Jesus and the Virgin Mary were common during the early stages of the medieval period. One of the most iconic religious paintings created during this time was the Last Supper by Giotto di Bondone. It is painted in 1306. This painting portrayed Jesus surrounded by his apostles, which went on to become the most depicted religious scene in art history. Next is medieval sculptures. Um, the inclusion of realism also featured within the medieval sculptures that were created. Prior to the fall of Roman Empire, sculptures were traditionally stylized in their features. After the empire collapse, realism was ushered in by the Athenians and Carolinians, who emphasized the use of realistic aesthetics over the apathetic expressions that were used in periods such as the Byzantine era. Third is the illuminated manuscripts. It is an art form that rose in popularity during the medieval era. Was illuminated manuscripts, which feature the documents of adorning text and ornamental objects. In the art archives today, the majority of the surviving illuminated manuscripts came from the medieval phase of art. Lastly, we have the stained glasses. Another stunning type of art that was prevalent during the medieval era was the art of stained glass. This art form was created by mixing sand and wood ash together before melting it into a liquid so that it molded into a glass. Before the glass had hardened, um, powdered metals were added, which created the beautiful colors seen in the glassworks that later decorated great cathedrals. Okay, now let's watch the video clip for more understanding about the medieval arts in a medieval period.
The medieval period, or the Middle Ages, spans almost 1,000 years between 400 and 1300 AD. This was a time when major art movements took place. New art genres were created. Different artistic traditions were meshed, including styles from the Middle East and Africa. And notable artists created some stunning masterpieces that would inspire the early Renaissance. The medieval period encompassed 8 major artistic movements, which include Byzantine, Islamic, Viking, Carolingian, Celtic, Ottonian, Romanesque, and Gothic art. The Middle Ages were also a time when Christianity was flourishing across Europe, and this meant a rejection of older pagan ways of life. Roman Emperor Constantine gained many followers after his public proclamation that Christianity, a religion which had been heavily persecuted in its early years, would now be tolerated. Medieval art reflects the sweeping popularity of Christianity. The medieval era saw the collapse of the Western Roman Empire, which is one reason why Emperor Constantine moved the Roman capital from Rome to Byzantium, which we know as present-day Istanbul. Constantine's Byzantine Empire relied on the stability of the East while maintaining ample trade routes with the West. A new sect of Christianity, Catholicism, gained prominence in the West, but the artists of the region followed the lead of their Eastern Byzantine peers in terms of artistic style. One of the key points to remember about art of this age is that due to concerns about the Bible's prohibition of graven images, medieval artists avoided sculptures in the round, which could be viewed from all sides, such as Roman busts. Instead, artists tended towards one-dimensional and somewhat abstract art. During the decline of the Western Roman Empire, religious mosaics and frescoes made their appearances in medieval churches, cathedrals, and basilicas. Medieval art involved a fusion of Eastern and Western cultures, including Europe, the Middle East, and Africa. The earliest medieval art, dating from 500 to 800 AD, is best known for the tessellated or repeated patterns of Islam and the Vikings' bejeweled migratory art. Islamic art reflected Muslim ideas of heaven as a natural paradise and featured many floral patterns as well as repeated geometric forms and elegant calligraphy. The Vikings excelled in woodwork and metalwork featuring interlaced patterns and abstract depictions of animals. As they were a migratory people, most of their art was portable. The Vikings are known for their fibulae, or golden brooches, and one of the most famous of these is the Ostrogothic golden eagle fibula, an abstract eagle brooch with a circular center and a geometric arrangement of precious gems. During the Carolingian period, between the late 8th and early 10th centuries, Emperor Charlemagne sponsored the construction of many extravagant churches and monasteries. He also lavished churches with gifts of liturgical items for use in Christian services, such as chalices, incense censers, and crosses made of gold and silver covered with pearls and gems. Although elaborate metal art had been common in the past, Charlemagne deliberately challenged the Byzantine iconoclasts of the late 700s by encouraging depictions of the human form, which could be viewed as idols in the liturgical art of his time. Charlemagne was also responsible for spreading literacy among nobles throughout his reign. He stressed the importance of books and reading, which had been neglected for many years, and his views led to the development of the popular Carolingian minuscule script. Illuminated manuscripts, or elaborately illustrated books, with covers made of precious metals and covered with jewels, were popular with monks in medieval times. The best-known illuminated manuscripts come from Celtic artists who used many of the same designs found in their legacy of metalwork in the intricate knot-like paintings in their books. Wealthy families owned their own illuminated manuscripts, which were called the Book of Hours, and were used for their daily religious activities. As demand grew, artists were encouraged to show off their skills in creating these manuscripts, which were needed for universities and monasteries, as well as wealthy patrons. Geometric patterns from Coptic Egypt and the Anglo-Saxon fascination with animal art began influencing Celtic style in the 7th century. Some of the best examples of early Middle Age art that we have today are found in illuminated manuscripts. The Book of Durrow, the Book of Kells, the Lindisfarne Gospels, and the Ebbo Gospels are 4 of the best-known manuscripts. During the Ottonian period, named after King Otto the Great, and his son and grandson Otto II and III, the cultural revival that Charlemagne had spearheaded influenced new art that took on an increasingly Germanic style. By 1000 AD, Romanesque architecture had begun to gain followers in France and quickly spread all over Europe as cities and their monasteries gained more and more power and wealth. Romanesque architecture was characterized by semicircular Roman arches, thick stone walls, and separated spaces according to function. Cathedrals were bigger than ever before and were richly decorated with vibrant paintings and figurative sculptures. Relief work in these cathedrals tended to be bigger than ever before, and artists explored new ways to make them more and more imposing. Every church had impressive frescoes depicting religious scenes, and this became almost mandatory for churches and cathedrals of the day. Many paintings featured horrible monsters and beasts battling it out with heroes, or amongst themselves. By the early 12th century, Gothic art had emerged in France. Gothic art was more realistic than previous medieval styles, and it also incorporated striking and elegant new designs into traditional art, which made this new style distinctive and popular. One of the key changes was in architecture, where it brought the integration of sculpture into buildings, like saint-shaped pillars and angels floating on window frames. The new design that Gothic architects adopted allowed them to free up space for stained glass windows. As a result, some spectacular stained glass work was created and installed in many churches. The most common themes depicted the Virgin Mary and Christ Child motif. As 1300 AD drew to a close, leading medieval artists like Giotto began searching for a way to set their work apart from the older Byzantine style. As a result of these artists' experimentations, the Renaissance style, which produced such masters as Michelangelo, Da Vinci, and Raphael, was born.
Are you enlightened now that you have an idea on what medieval art is? Okay, very good class. Okay, we'll move on to the famous artworks and the artists in this period. A quickly discussion about it because it says it on the video you watched a while ago. First artwork is the Lamentation, the Morning of Christ. It is painted by Giotto di Bondone. His famous painting is the most recognized work from the medieval era and features the moments immediately after Christ's death, before he was laid to rest in the tomb. The apostles and other figures are shown with halos around their heads, while angels can be seen weeping in the heavens above the body of Christ. Next, we have Wilton Diptych. Wilton Diptych. The work was known to have been completed in 1399, just as the medieval period was coming to an end. It was painted for King Richard II of England, who is depicted as kneeling before the Holy Virgin and Child, which are featured on the right diptych panel. King Richard II is seen surrounded by the three prominent figures from Christian theology and English royalty as John the Baptist, Edward the Confessor, and Edmund the Martyr are each standing over him. The diptych is made of Baltic oak and remains in remarkable condition at the National Gallery in London. Number 3, we have the Ghent altarpiece of Hubert and Jan van Eyck. The work is credited to the two prominent Flemish brothers who produced a number of prestigious artworks during this time period. Hubert and Jan van Eyck were known to have painted a number of other religious themed works that featured various scenes from the Bible, but none would gain as much praise as this 1432 work. Number 4 is the Presentation of the Temple, Ambrogio Lorenzetti. Italian painter Ambrogio Lorenzetti has been credited as one of the central figures who greatly influenced a litany of the Renaissance artists who would follow after him more than a century later. He is known to have painted another famous medieval work that is also featured on a panel-style surface that features 4 of the patron saints from the city of the Siena, Italy. Next is a diptych of the Virgin and the Child enthroned and the Crucifixion. Another medieval painting that contains an air of a mystery is known as the diptych of the Virgin and Child enthroned and the Crucifixion. This too was painted on the set of the diptych panels and remains in a good condition considering it is believed to have been finished around 1275 AD. The diptych features a very simple, straightforward depiction of the Virgin Mary seated on the left diptych holding the infant Jesus, while the two are joined by what appears to the cherubs of the childlike angelic beings hovering above the mother and son. Next is the Trinity of Andrei Rublev. One of the most recognized pieces of the art from the medieval period was done by the Andrei Rublev, a Russian painter who produced various religious works during the 15th century, I say, just before the Renaissance era would begin in Italy. Next is Ognissanti Madonna by Giotto di Bonde again. Another notable work that was credited to Giotto di Bondone, who was known as Giotto, is titled Ognissanti Madonna. This simple yet elegant depiction of a Virgin Mary with the baby Jesus is dated to around 1310 and remains in remarkable condition considering its history. The painting features an oversized Madonna or Virgin Mary with the infant Jesus, who are depicted as being encircled by angels and various figures from the Bible. Next is the rest during the flight into Egypt, the Gentile de Fabriano. The work depicts the young family leaving the lush, open lands of their home and heading toward a vast city that is represented as Egypt, which at the time of the biblical account was still a sprawling metropolis. One of the most famous paintings to have been done in the 15th century is credited as coming from the artist known as Gentile de Fabriano. Next is Paradise Gartlanes, Upper Rhenish Master. It was not uncommon for some of the details surrounding medieval paintings to have been lost to time. One such painting was done by an unknown artist who is simply referred to as Upper Rhenish Master. This work is believed to have been created in 1410 and is titled Paradise Gartlanes, which means Garden of Paradise. Lastly, the Christ rescuing Peter from the drowning, Lorenzo Veneziano. One of the most iconic paintings from the medieval era features a famous scene from the Bible's New Testament in which Christ is said to have walked on the water during mighty storm. The painting was created by Lorenzo Veneziano in 1370 and remains one of the most recognized paintings from the time period. The work itself features a depiction of fishing boat Jesus' disciples were traveling in across Israel's Sea of Galilee when a violent storm struck. Okay, this ends our discussion, class. Do you have any question? Okay, none. Thank you very much, class, for participating and listening for today's discussion. I hope you learned something. Goodbye.